Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Mastery Monday. This is a show that I release every Monday to help you identify skill gaps, build a career in B2B sales, and ultimately have a lot more fun when you're out selling. And I'm basically sharing the insights when I'm working with sales leaders and their teams or in one-to-ones with SDRs or AEs to give that content back to you to have a better week ahead. And this week I want to talk to you about champions, and not just because I've written a book called the Champion Playbook. DM me if you want to get a copy, but we're seeing so many reps coming up to the back end of Q3 as we record this that are now realizing that actually the person they've been spending weeks and months with isn't the right person. They're not prepared to go and bring or can't bring an economic buyer into a budget conversation, and now they're in a lot of trouble because it's too late in the quarter to do anything about it and rebuild pipeline. So I wanted to break down a couple of things for you today. So I want to break down what is a champion. I want to talk to you about a trap that we've all fallen into one too many times, and I'm actually going to read you part of the book to bring that to life. I want to talk about how you can identify a champion, how to qualify one, and then how to enable them, and then just give you an idea on how you can build more champions inside of your customer's organization to drive a better outcome. So grab a pen and paper and let's get into this. So when it comes to identifying a champion, we have to first identify or understand what is a champion, what do they look like, how do we, what characteristics do we look for, that kind of thing. And then there's also different people in the account, right? Like a coach, influencer, enemy, other stakeholders, and then also an economic buyer, right? So if we're talking about a champion, there's three things that people typically look for, okay? So one is they have a vested interest in your success. If I need somebody in a mid-market or enterprise account to walk the corridors and ultimately pull different people in or drive consensus and get approval, this person, to put their name to it, they have to have something to gain. Like, think about in your own personal life or when you're in business, you don't go out of your way to do something for somebody else unless you've got something to gain. Unfortunately, the quicker we realize that people are selfish and they have their own things that they need to focus on, the quicker we'll realize actually, are we spending time with a champion or not? Okay. So number one, they have to have a vested interest in your success. The second is they have to have power and influence in the organization. So when I say influence, things like, can they influence decision criteria with your differentiation? When they're on a call, like a group demo, and they start speaking, do people stop talking, sit up and listen, pay attention and agree and nod along? When it comes to power, are they part of the power base? Can they bring in an economic buyer into a conversation, that kind of stuff? So that's the second part, is power and influence. And then finally, the third component is, are they selling for you internally? Like in most cases, there's not going to be one person that's going to, get your deal done. There's going to be multiple people they need to go and bring and put you in front of, or they need to present your solution to without you being in that room. And that's a really good qualifier of this person being a champion, is if they're walking through, navigating the account with and without you to drive consensus and get your deal across the line, right? And I was interviewing a 5-time CRO the other day about developing champions, and he really hit the nail on the head. There's one characteristic that you can validate that determines the rest of them are true naturally, and that is if that champion will take you to and can get you in front of an economic buyer, okay? Because they have to have vested interest to want to do it. They have to have power and influence, okay? And they're obviously selling for you. So that's a really key one I think we should probably spend a lot more time in sales organizations really understanding, are our sellers really ready to go and do that, okay? Now, I mentioned about this trap, right? I've got a couple of lines I want to read you from the book, and then a anonymized Slack conversation between a sales rep and a sales leader, just to kind of bring this thing to life, okay? So let me kind of grab it here. When I say kind of a trap, okay, I mean you've kind of fallen for it where you think they're your champion, you've not properly vetted them, and then you realize late in the quarter. So in the part of the book here, it says, what to do when you realize the truth. So it can be deflating to realize your champion isn't what you'd hoped, but this moment is not failure, it's progress. Clarity is always better than delusion. Like, hopefully this is resonating with everyone that listens to it when I get to the end, because I think if you've been in sales more than 5 minutes, you've probably suffered with this, either with knowing it or without. Once you know, you have a choice. So there's three things. You can requalify. So you can ask new questions, reset expectations, and try to understand whether this contact could actually become a real champion with the right support. So there's that part. The second is multi-thread. So can I use the relationship with this person, probably a coach, to find others who hold influence and power in the organization, ask for introductions, map out the organization more thoroughly with this person, and then use them to help me get through the account. And then the third option is move on. If it's clear the contact has no influence and won't open any new doors, you must decide whether to walk away from the deal entirely or pause until their better conditions emerge. What you mustn't do, is never double down on hope. You are not in the business of wishing deals into existence. You are in the business of creating traction through truth and the reality. Your contact didn't trick you and you didn't fail by trusting them. False champions are part of sales and it's something we learn over time. They are as common in sales as missed flights at airports. The difference between great sellers and the rest is how quickly they spot the pattern, how honestly they respond to it, and how proactively they course correct. And that for me is what Medic is all about. It's a GPS, and when we come off track, it helps us course correct early rather than late. The false champion trap is avoidable, but only if you respect the process of qualification, resist the urge, and learn to listen, not just to what is being said, but to what is missing and the actions they do or do not take. In sales, the cost of false confidence is always higher than the cost of patience. And there's this made up AE VP of sales Slack chat I want to take you through and see if any of you guys will resonate with this. So the AE messages the VP of sales, I've moved Acme to Lost. Sarah really liked the product and was super helpful, so I'm a bit confused. VP of sales replies, what did Sarah have to gain? Did she intro you to other stakeholders? And the AE replies, I'm not sure, but Sarah was looking for new AI solutions. I didn't meet anyone else in the account. The VP of sales replies, just been looking at the CRM. After 108 days, would expect others to be involved in a £75,000 deal. Upon reflection, do you think Sarah was more of a coach? And the AE replies back saying, yes, I think so. Sometimes in sales, it's tough, right? We don't want to hear bad news like that. So we kind of almost ignore it and then hope it's going to go away. And the reality is it never does. We know what we need to do. We're paid a lot of money to tackle risk head on. Our job is to go and do it and then take some kind of action, be it re-qualify, multi-thread, or move on and wait for a better opportunity to emerge. So yeah, just something to think about as you go into the next couple of quarters and you're building pipeline. Is this person really going to be the person that will take me all the way? If not, I probably need to do something about it today. Otherwise, it'll be too late. So how do I identify one? So there's kind of two things here, really. One is go directly to an economic buyer, share or lay down a vision of what you believe you could do with that account, and then ask them who they would lean into, who they would ask for support, who would they, get recommendations from, who would they want to hear from in the organization. Obviously, we're not going to say who do you think is a champion, but if we went to an economic buyer, laid things out and basically made it really easy for them to point at somebody and push us in the right direction, then that's obviously a really great approach. I spoke about this with Kino on a podcast recently. The other times is looking at CRM, going into Salesforce, going into HubSpot, whatever CRM you're using, looking at the last 15, 20 deals that have been closed won in your territory, in the region, whatever it might be, in that industry you're selling into, and look for the typical champions and the problems that we're trying to solve at the time, and then go and look at the customer account that you're trying to break into or trying to navigate, and then go and run a program and see if you can actually qualify that person as a champion. So sometimes, a lot of the time, it's actually just looking at the CRM and looking for patterns. And what you might find is, as the market evolves, as your business evolves, competitors evolve, that kind of stuff, champions can sometimes change in an organization, and roles and hierarchies and reorgs and things like that, can sometimes push us in the wrong direction and in the right direction. So, if you want to identify somebody, first ask the questions, but also have a look at some historical data. It might actually say, hey, you typically would deal with a VP of sales, but in an organization like this, it's normally the VP of RevOps. Maybe go down that route. Okay, something to think about. Qualifying a champion, we'd probably be here all day talking about this, but as I mentioned earlier, and as Kino mentioned in one of our recent podcast episodes, is the only real way to finally qualify if somebody's a champion is by asking them to take you to the economic buyer. And Kino nails this, right? So if you ask your champion early, take me to the economic buyer, and they say no, there's usually two things at play here, and I love how he breaks them down. So one is, this person isn't ready to take you to the economic buyer because they don't feel comfortable or confident that we've satisfied the reduction of risk or the return on investment, okay? And we need to then build that out with them. Or this person actually cannot take you to an economic buyer because they don't have the power, and they're not in the power base, and they don't have the relationship with economic buyers to actually bring you into a conversation with them. So asking this question early is important for two reasons. One, it helps you get rid of non-champions quick so that you don't burn precious time and resources. But two, it's like when you ask for the order. If they say no, you just ask, hey, no worries, what do we need to do to make you feel comfortable to move forward? And then you obviously go and do those things. It's the same here. If we're like, hey, Julie, would you take me to Jonathan, who you mentioned is, your CFO and will be approving the budget for this? And they say, not yet. I would say, not yet. Right, and get them to maybe open up. And then I'm grabbing a pen and paper and I'm building out my decision process, my go live plan, and the decision criteria that goes with it, and trying to understand who's involved at what step, why do they get involved, can we do any of these in parallel, do they have to run in a specific order, document and be like, cool, so once we've done these things, you'd be prepared to set up a meeting with me, you, and Jonathan? Yeah, I would. Okay, great. Well, let's partner up and let's make our way through this. Let's start here and then just start moving through, right? So that's one thing that you can definitely do, and it's a very straightforward thing, and I think sometimes we overcomplicate that in sales. Right, next part is around enablement. So how do we enable one? So once we've identified this person's good and we want to give them some tooling to go through the customer account and walk those corridors, as I say, and dip their head into different meeting rooms and try and pull people into the conversation, a business case is obviously a really, really powerful one to do that. We recently published a new course in the Sales University called Outcome Drivers. So this is like a quadrant, and it's a great way to tell the value story. So current state, desired future state, decision criteria, and then measurement. If you can put that onto one slide and package that up for somebody, they can share those resources through the customer's organization. You can create some different ones based on different personas, different groups and departments in the account to make sure that it's obviously relevant for them to come in and get involved and feel fired up and excited about this. But the business case is so important. Been doing them for 7-8 years, something like that. And now part of our medic deployments and part of our general sales training programs that we run with reps and teams is around building that business case, cost justification. We're seeing a lot of sales organizations significantly increase their win rates, some by 75% and deal size 31%, when they use a business case and a way to justify their costs. So if you want your champion to be able to put their best foot forwards to sell for you, which by definition is a characteristic of a champion, we have to do a better job of enabling them. And that 50-page, that 10-page, that 15-page PowerPoint deck that is all about you, nothing about them other than their logo, I'm sorry, but it's not going to help. It has to be personalized. The context has to be there. Otherwise, it'll just fall flat and it'll just look like another cookie cutter, catch-all kind of solution that doesn't excite people and doesn't get budget approval. Okay. The last thing I want to talk to you about today in this Mastery Monday to get you thinking about, and again, by the way, if you want a lot more content for a lot of this stuff, then go check out the Sales University. I've got like 140 lessons just on this topic alone. How to build more champions. One of the things that I think can be really powerful, depending on the type of business that you work in, is workshops and on-site workshops. And I think, unfortunately, in B2B sales in the last 5 years, one of the things we've just stopped doing, which is crazy, is going out and meeting customers face to face. I'm a big fan of getting FaceTime with customers. Always have. Like my very first sales job, I was in a car driving out to people's offices, selling them IT, technology, services, that kind of stuff. And there was always in-person meetings throughout the sales process. It's just a great way to build relationships and also differentiate yourself in the sales process. And I think it's such a great opportunity for sellers moving into 2026 2026 to go out and spend some good quality time with their champions and the buying group in their office around a whiteboard. We did this with my last team because we're selling to enterprise. There was an account, one of the largest financial service businesses in the country, and the business I was working for had tried selling to this company 3 times over the last 5 years and always got stuck with the same people at the same stage, and then the deal ended up just kind of fizzling out. And I hired a new rep. They booked a meeting with the account, and we looked at the account. We said, look, I'm happy to run it again, but I think we should do something differently here. 2 things. One is we need to get more people involved, otherwise we'll probably have the same outcome. But 2, I can't see any business case from the last opportunities. We need to make sure we build something that screams come and buy me. So we did an exercise on Sales Navigator. We presented the different people that we believe should be involved. These are the use cases, these are the outcomes, that kind of stuff. And then a couple of weeks later, a couple of people on my side and 24 people on the customer side across 4 different P&Ls in the group were in their innovation center in London with sticky notes, mapping out processes and workflows, and then we were peeling them off and doing little mini demos on how we would solve for those and support for those. And then as I was leaving the organization to start this business, the Revenue Enabler, that organization was finishing the back end of the procurement process on a 3-year contract. So getting face time with people is so important, not just to win more deals, because you will, but also if you want to get more people involved, doing workshops is such a fantastic way to do it. It's very strategic. It's very consultative. It feels premium. It makes your business feel more valuable. So, people are happy to pay a higher, price tag for it. So there's so many benefits. I think we just need to realize that there's more than one way to sell. And that isn't just behind a desk over a Zoom account and trying to get people into a deal fast. Like, actually, let's be a lot more strategic with our customers and the opportunities, and we'll have a much better outcome. So I hope that was valuable as a session. If you want to get your hands on a copy of the Champion Playbook, like I said, this is a field manual. There's no fluff. You're not going to wait like 4 or 5 chapters to get into anything like most people complain about sales books. This thing is going to be, we're going to go from 0 to 100 miles per hour straight away so that you can get straight into value and start implementing this stuff to have a better outcome in sales. If you want a copy, shoot me a LinkedIn message and I'll make sure you get a copy in your hands ASAP. Until next time, I'll see you for another episode of Mastery Monday next Monday. Thanks so much for listening.